Hello, welcome to the student housing tier list. So today I'm going to talk basically about three main categories of student housing. The first is the sort of main channels, normal channels to find housing. Then there's these community ones, and finally some emergency housing options. So let's dive straight in with really common websites like Vuokraovi, where you can rent an apartment, and normal people would use these as much as students. So these kind of websites are usually quite expensive, can be difficult to use, and then also you need to have all this other bureaucracy for Finland, so straight into D tier, I would say. Don't try this first. Next we have the student channels. This is pretty good. So HOAS coming straight in at A tier. This is really strong. You can usually find a super cheap apartment, has all the amenities. You need to apply early though, so apply as soon as you can for a HOAS apartment. Next we have Sato. This is similar to HOAS. The only thing is that you would need a Finnish ID. So maybe this is something once you've already moved to Finland you need a house you can find. But because of that it makes it a bit more tricky. So maybe if I could put it between B and A I would, but let's drop it to B. Okay, then we get to Klavis. This is kind of the ancestral home of SIBA students. So this is the academy-owned building, just exclusively for SIBA students. So that's quite a plus if you want to meet just your own kind, I suppose. Klavis can be quite expensive, sometimes really difficult to find a place there at first. But then once you move here, you'll realize that lots of people kind of rent a room there and don't use it, and then you can sublet it, for example. So I would put Klavis into C, but because of that reason it's more available than it seems. Actually, I would say B. Now we get on to the second type of ways of finding housing. So the elephant in the room is Facebook Marketplace. Okay, this is the first place I went to look for a house, and it can be pretty dodgy, I would say. So straight into F tier for Facebook Marketplace. It's super easy to scam people on Facebook, and basically anyone in the world can just rip some photos of a nice apartment in Töölö and just put them up with some crazy price that seems way too good to be true. So just really watch out with Facebook Marketplace in particular. Tori.fi is like the Finnish version of eBay or Facebook Marketplace, something like this. So maybe it's a little more trustworthy, but still it can be a bit dodgy, and then actually doing all the bureaucratic things like you're going to get a private apartment can be a bit more complicated. But let's leave it there in D tier. I think that's sitting quite nicely there. So then, staying on the kind of Facebook side, we come onto these pages that people actually use. For me, S tier here is Vuokra Asunnot Helsinki. This is a great Facebook page. You can basically find people just sharing if they're subletting an apartment or if the landlords put their apartments up there. And it can be pretty trusted because they have to go through a vetting process to actually join the page. Okay, so next we have this one, SIBA student Facebook page. This is an incredible resource. So you immediately find the community, people who are definitely trustworthy because you're going to probably meet them in person. Quite often, even if you just write there, oh, I need a house from this part to this part, someone will help you. Although there's not that many people there, so it could be a bit tricky. Keep that one in mind and join that page as soon as you can. Okay, so now we get onto the final part of this tier ranking, which is the emergency housing. So if you picture you just come to Helsinki and you have no idea where you're going to stay that night, maybe the first thing you would do is try these sort of sites like Hostel World or some kind of cheap hotels. And these can be good in the way that you can usually find a place to stay, but they can also be pretty expensive. So I would say this is maybe a C tier. It's a no other option, so you go for this. If you're a little bit more organized, I think websites like Couchsurfing, for example, can be really valuable. It's not only free to stay with the person, but you also make friends that can really help you when you're kind of searching for a place. You know, word of mouth is probably the most trustworthy thing to rely on when looking for housing. So for me, couchsurfing straight into A tier. And then just finally to conclude, there is also this website. This is on the Helsinki city website, and it's a kind of helpline for emergency housing. You are absolutely at wit's end, you've not organised anything, you can always call this and stay there. I've never used it myself, but it's good to know that it's there in an emergency. All the links to these pages and helplines and websites and everything can be found in my blog called Housing in Helsinki, in the Life of an Art Student blog on the UniArts website.